This is an open letter to Mr. Elon Musk. Hello, sir. How are you? Bravo. You're the big dick. Here's the thing, with all due respect. Here's the thing, sir. My mailman has asked me this couple of times now that do you think we are good people? And when he says we, he means, us. Because I guess he knows some of my perspectives because we talk so much. So he has asked me a few times, and I was still thinking on it. And he brought it up again. Do you think we are good people? We meaning white people from Europe, pink-skinned people from Europe. And I didn't have an answer. I was still stuck until the other day. He asked again, and it became clear because it came up with another subject that we talked about before, and the subject was. I believe, as I was explaining to him, that we are at core animals. At birth, we are animals. So racism is natural. The gentleman thought that, which many places they teach, that racism is not natural and feeling of superiority is not natural. But it is. It is. I have another video that I went over this, that basically it's clear that when a white wolf is born in between black wolves, a pack of black wolves, that white wolf is very much in danger. Call it colorism, call it racism, call it the visuals don't match, one is not like the other. So, but in nature, we are human beings, are like all other animals. Our natural tendency is to be racist. We don't have there's no other way about it. Our natural tendency is to be racist because of, how nature works. If it looks like me, or looks like nature doesn't have a mirror. So if it looks, a deer knows it's a deer because it recognizes deers because the mommy and daddy were deers, and all his life, the deer has this visual representation as this is who I have to go around with, because they don't know. A deer doesn't know that the deer looks like a deer. All it knows is that when I'm with these guys, apparently I'm safe. Anybody who doesn't look like these guys, I'm unsafe. So, they reach the same conclusion that we reach, but through a different path. We see them and say, okay, they look alike, so they walk around each other, they have packs, and they recognize each other because the outline and the coloring, the pigmentation is the same as mommy and daddy, so that guy must be safe. So from the very beginning, from the hoverboard stage, from the fish stage, creatures are programmed to recognize self as what, not recognize self so much as recognize mommy and daddy, and whoever is similar looking to mommy and daddy is safe, and whoever is not looking like mommy and daddy must be unsafe. So the point is, salute, racism comes natural. You have to work against it. You have to enlighten people. Again, this racism business is a very different matter as who has aptitude for what. You're not better because this aptitude that you have is much better than the same aptitude in the other guy. That doesn't make you better. That just makes you different. He has an aptitude that he can dance, and you can't. Again, it's not better. You no no no, you can't claim like, these Ashkenazi folks, you're not special by nature. You're not on top of the pyramid by as because you have this specific skill. You are, there are other tribes that value other skills. Yes, again, you're technologically may be advantageous for tribes to be cognitively strong, but do you want diversity on your planet, or do you want the whole planet to look like Karen? You see what I'm saying? With freckles. Salute. My point is this, sir. So I reached the conclusion that just like racism comes naturally, and it has to be, people have to be taught out of it, and with the explanation that yes, all races have different aptitude, we can't help that, it's just nature, evolution, revolution, genetic evolution, it's nature, it happens. Therefore, we should not use our technology to try to eliminate other races. You have advantageous technology, but by eliminating other races, you're going to end up with a bunch of Karens. And, life is not fun with a bunch of Karens. My point is this. Then you remember somewhere else that I remember the first time I saw Japanese, and you would see in this video a perfect, good-looking Japanese girl, very delicate, very, sane, seems sane. But this delicate Japanese girl, suddenly the chef or the garçon brings a plate of octopus, puts it in front of her, and just starts live. The octopus is trying to escape the plate. It's live, that so much so that it's trying to escape the plate, but right in front of her, the garçon cuts up the eight-legged creature while the delicate lady is watching. And I just couldn't get this through my head. It's like, what? How is she not diverting her eyes? This delicate Japanese woman who was watching this live octopus being, circumcised in front of her. So I watched it, and it didn't make sense until you put that next to British understanding of that having a stiff upper lip, i.e. having no emotions, showing no emotions, is the right thing to do. You see what I'm saying? Japanese and the British have apparently, they both have the same attitude in life. This is the whole stiff upper lip. Never say die. These guys are island people. And in their culture, just like racism has to be taught out of people through teaching them compassion, racism has to be taught out of people by teaching them compassion. In the Japanese culture and in the British culture, the compassion is not part of the curriculum. It's clear. Now, I love Japanese, don't get me wrong. British, a different story. But I like Japanese, but because I don't have any history with Japanese. My perspective of Japanese is an island of very smart people. But I can assure you the Chinese don't like Japanese because they have been on the receiving end of the Japanese bayonet, as we were on West Asia on the receiving end of the fucking British bayonet. So forgive me, Japanese people, you seem, you seem sane, but then we see some things from you, including this, that how can not compassion be so important to be taught in the Japanese society, that this delicate lady is sitting there and just enjoying the slaughter of the fucking. Now we all eat them. I'm not a vegetarian. I've had octopus, but I certainly wouldn't enjoy watching the goddamn thing being, you know, that's part of the. Let's put it this way, the cutting up of the live octopus on your table is part of the entertainment. Forgive me, but that's not a entertainment in cultures that compassion is very much thought as part of the culture. But when you say stiff upper lip is our trademark, that means you pride yourself in not teaching compassion to your citizens or your leaders who nobody has compassion. Mr. Biden basically says, yeah, Ukraine war is good for our economy, so we are going to go full steam ahead, as well as the Israeli war. War is good for economy. It just keeps it going. It creates inflation. But when the whole world system is based on dollar debt, there is really nobody can inject too much dollar into the system. As much as you can inject it, the system will take it, because everybody owes everybody in dollars with interest that nobody prints except Uncle Sam. So everybody is always going to be in need of, if you have a single currency, everybody is always going to be in need of it to pay especially if your system has usury, has interest in it. If you have interest in it, then that's the problem, because nobody's printing the interest but Uncle Sam. But if you eliminate usury and say no, there is not going to be any interest, the number of we are not going to allow anybody to collect any interest from anybody, period. I think that would be the end of the situation, the bad situation, because there is always a dollar for every dollar of debt. There is always a dollar in the system. You see what I'm saying? When you start charging interest is when you're demanding dollars that nobody has printed yet. That's the interest part. You see what I'm saying? So if I give you $10 and demand $11 next year from you, imagine this is alien dollar. Nobody else prints this dollar. I just printed 10 of it and gave it to you, and eventually you need to, and next year demand 11 back. You don't have the machine that I made this with. Where are you going to get the number 11? That same way works with two people. Each $10, 10 alien currency, and I demand 12 back next year. My point is this, that there is very little compassion is taught in your systems, my pink-skinned friends, Mr. Elon Musk. Compassion is not taught. In fact, compassion is discouraged in the British system. Show stiff upper lip. That's our thing. You put this next to a video that I recently saw, that an African guy from some African country, all I knew was he could speak English, so I could understand him. So this African guy was saying that, yeah, you see, Europeans, the problem with Europeans is they're not Homo sapiens. We black people are Homo sapiens. Europeans are a mix of basically all people who are out of Africa. That includes the Middle Easterners and Europeans. He's saying basically these folks, who knows what the Chinese and Japanese their roots are. But as far as these guys are concerned, Middle Easterners and Europeans, is that they have some Neanderthal DNA in them. We are Homo sapiens, they are mixed Homo sapien Neanderthal. And for that, because of that, they don't have compassion. And when you think about it, that the Belgians, the small piece of land in Europe, started calling themselves Belgians and declared the border for themselves. They decided going to Africa and owning some African land. This is what their leader did. Okay, where was this leader? Where did this leader grow up in? Where did this leader grow up in? In Belgium. What kind of mindset was around it? No compassion, obviously, because years later this baby grew up into becoming somebody who killed 10 million people in Congo, I believe. Compassion was not taught, just like this delicate Japanese girl who watches the octopus literally being slaughtered in front of her and just enjoys it. Compassion is not taught, I don't believe, well to these folks. And they pride themselves in not having the compassion. Japanese society is exactly very strict. No compassion, no room for compassion, no room for compromise. Win or die. Isn't that the British idea? Win or die. That's the whole British peasant society is always on the front line because this is what they're taught. Win or die. What the fuck? Salute. So, this idea that are we good people? Are we, the white people, good people? Well, you could be good people. You're smart enough to be good people, but your curriculum is missing the compassion part, Mr. Elon Musk. You have potential to be good people, but you're missing the compassion part. Why I say this is because, very simple, if all these people you're firing, saying that, okay, you're fired, we don't need you to cause problems here in the bureaucracy. However, we are going to put you on a universal basic income, some kind of universal basic income, and we are not going to stop it. This is the right time to introduce, before you go into a depression, Mr. Musk, Mr. Trump, sir. Before you slip into a depression, this is the time to, as you fire people so they wouldn't cause more problems, as you fire them, you have to put them straight on universal basic income. And has to be, have some kind of relevance to their current income. 90%, 80% of their current income, they're going to receive till the end of their life. That's the way you stop depression or recession, really bad recession, from taking place. You're cutting the buying power of all these people overnight, over 6 months. Unless, because buying power is what prevents recessions and depressions. You have high inflation but low buying power right now is because all the money is stuck in Mr. Bezos' hand. All the money is in Mr. Buffett's hand and Mr. Diamond this and Frank that hand. So that all that money is creating inflation, or JP Morgan and Bank of America, all that money is creating inflation, but it's not in the spending hands. UBI is putting money where it's going to create some kind of a economic movement. But then you have to squeeze the people at the top if you don't want to increase the inflation. And I understand that your team is not the team that would squeeze people at the top, because you are people at the top. So, I'm guessing by not providing people with some kind of means of spending power, you're going to put the system into a bad recession, which, you know, the next democratic, you know, candidate would be a full-fledged communist. Because you have put the whole system into a deep, you know, recession, because you are not realizing that if you stop their income, they will stop spending. If they stop spending, the economic wheel doesn't move. And no, they can't find other jobs. Is that job, especially when all the physical job. I mean, how many people do you hire per factory, Mr. Elon Musk? Are you hiring 20, 30,000 people per factory? I can't stop laughing when I hear that, you know, this NPR says such and such a company is opening up, you know. I listen to NPR Arizona. So NPR Arizona is like such and such in Intel or this CCMC opening. Oh, it has just opened is opening this great chip manufacturing. Blah blah blah. Great. When she reaches the point that she says, and we're going to have 60 new jobs. That's when I start laughing every time. Is because, you know, population of Phoenix, Arizona is like 4 million people, 5 million people, and this news is bragging how TCMC has brought 60 jobs. So it's a joke. Jobs are not, you know, that, especially now that you have the AI, the mechanization, automation took off all the physical necessities, and now AI is taking all the cognitive jobs. So the idea is this: the compassion, I believe, just like racism is taught out of people, just like, you know, you teach the black wolves to accept the white wolf amongst them by explaining to them that this motherfucker just doesn't have pigmentation, but in every other sense is just like you. Just like that, racism has to be taught out of people. Compassion has to be taught into people. What I see is that's, forgive me, I'm going back to this, Mr. Elon Musk. I suggested you should have a black wife, a black assistant, better than that, black assistant. Just present. And, you know, you can say, oh, hey, if you have any objections to any of me and my boys' ideas, if you have any objection to that, tell me after the meeting. You know, you want an assistant who's present in every meeting that you have with other white boys, rich white boys. In those meetings, you want to have a black presence who apparently is taught some kind of compassion in its culture. Because here's the thing, you're priding yourself in your lack of compassion by this idea that stiff upper lip is a good thing. I believe there is, you know, a lot of stiff upper lip mentality your father has taught you. It's a part of your culture. You know, don't cry when you get hit, and don't be a wimp, and you know, fuck them up, and you know, the same things that are taught in, you know, from an early age in WWE and WWF used to be taught, and this and that and the other. It's like, you know, UFC, this ultimate fighting champion. Let's beat the shit out of each other for no reason. You know, this is the stiff upper lip part. This is the lack of compassion part that you're not teaching. You're not teaching compassion. And if you don't teach compassion, violence will take over. Just like if you don't teach not to be racist, racists take over being racist, because being racist comes natural to us as part of the animal kingdom. Being racist comes natural to us. Just like that, being violent and animalistic comes natural to us. It has to be taught out of us. It has to be taught out. And in terms of compassion, in fact, if you do teach compassion in your culture, which it lacks, if you do teach compassion, it's going to be a lot of, less violence as well. Again, naturally human beings are violent. And laws are good, but when people are harboring, that's why road rage comes from. People are harboring a lot of violence that they see in movies, in TV, vengeful God this and vengeful God that. And we are to win against our enemies. Your enemies are the same mix of Homo sapien, Neanderthal blood as you. It's like you're no different. They're no chosen people. The people that you white people who do not try to teach too much compassion to your people, to your children, you end up with being very violent societies. It's sort of like the culture of Netherlands and Belgium and France has been affected by the culture of the British, the violent culture of British, the stiff upper lip culture of the British, and North American culture has been manipulated by the no compassion, stiff upper lip culture of the British. And and you mix the culture of the British, show no emotion, stiff upper lip, with the culture of capitalism. You mix these two together and you end up with Gordon Gekko, one of the most valued, a symbol of one of the most valued positions in your society. A guy who says, I'm willing to kill 10,000 people tonight so I can, sniff a line of coke. I don't care. Greed is good. Greed is good comes from your culture. That's the lack of compassion part. Yeah, Hollywood from time to time, plays a compassionate note, but that those are called chick flicks or something like that. But mostly men are promoted to watch UFC and watch some action, kill him. Hey, I'd watch them all the time. You're on Earth. What are you going to watch? Compassionate societies their special effects has not reached the special effects of uncompassionate societies. So the result is, if you don't teach compassion to your children, which I think Elon Musk's father has a failure on that part, not teaching compassion to his son, and not showing compassion. More important than teaching, showing compassion teaches children to have compassion. Showing compassion by the parents teaches the children to have compassion. I have a feeling Mr. Elon Musk Sr. hasn't shown much compassion towards Elon Musk, hasn't shown much compassion towards anybody else. While Elon Musk was watching growing up. You don't see compassion, you don't do compassion. It's taught, just like you're racist until it's taught out of you. That's how it works. Or else, Mr. Elon Musk's solution to this is that let's go back to keeping the society homogeneous, and that is white. Let's go keep the society white because we don't want to teach compassion. because the only way you're going to have a safe and stable, Mr. Charlie Kirk, the only way you're going to have a safe and stable society is if you have an all-white society, because you're not teaching compassion enough to your kids. A mixed society works only if compassion is taught purposefully. If you don't teach compassion purposefully, then mixed society will not work. You see what I'm saying? Because and Uncle Sam's managers have one very mixed society. It doesn't matter how much of these newcomers you kick out or old comers you kick out or older comers you kick out. If you do stop teaching compassion, if you don't start teaching compassion, forget about, I'm sorry, did I say stop teaching compassion? You never did. Neither under Democrats nor under Republican. Democrats were running just now. The Democrats were running a slaughterhouse in Ukraine and a slaughterhouse in Gaza. This is the delicate Japanese girl. When you see Nancy Pelosi is okay with running two slaughterhouse at the same time and hoping for a third slaughterhouse in Taiwan. This is lack of compassion. Compassion was not taught to Nancy Pelosi. Or else you say, hey, let's talk, see what's your problem. Why did you attack? Okay, Russia, you attacked Ukraine. We all agree that you attacked Ukraine. Okay, let's talk and see, why did you attack Ukraine? No, they said, no. They attack Ukraine. Ukraine has a right to fight back. Ukraine doesn't have a right to talk, just like Mr. Boris Johnson went and said, no. You don't make a deal with the Russians. They actually went and said, don't make a deal with Russia to Zelensky. And based on that, the war started. There was a last chance that, hey, let's do the same thing here. But, stiff upper lip, lack of compassion. We don't care. We need the Ukrainian minerals, and we don't care if 10 million Ukrainians die. That's because nobody has taught compassion to Mr. Boris Johnson. Mr. Boris Johnson is not evil by nature. This is the answer to my postman. You're not evil by nature. It's just that if you're not taught compassion, like that delicate Japanese girl wasn't taught compassion in a sense that maybe it's not a good idea to have the octopus sliced at your table. Maybe you don't want to say, I know we all eat them, but maybe you don't want to enjoy the slaughterhouse. Maybe you don't want to enjoy the slaughter process. Apparently, the lady enjoyed the process of slaughtering something, and it was a point of, it's a great service that when you eat the octopus, it's still moving in your mouth. And I've seen, some other parts of Japanese culture and Chinese culture that, again, that, the fish is fried and it brought to the table as it's yelping for air. So the head is not fried, the body is, flash fried, and it's brought to the table, and they can eat. People can enjoy eating it while watching it. Is still gasping for air. I have a feeling that's not gasping for air. The fucking fish is screaming. You just can't hear the motherfucker. So, a nice bullet to the head would have been a godsend. It would have been much less stressful, but these people were enjoying the fish's stress, enjoying the program, enjoying the entertainment. Well, if you don't teach compassion, So there's not going to be even an attempt at showing disgust at such a gruesome process that you get cut, you have pain, right? That octopus, that also when it's cut, it has pain. And if you cut it, you slice it to 1,000 pieces, you're basically making sure it feels every cut, every cut before it dies. I'm sorry. Again, compassion is not taught. You have the potential to be good people, but you have to be taught compassion. Many white cultures from Europe are not taught compassion. It's a very stiff upper lip, beat the shit out of them. It's all yours, That Mr. Austin, Steve Austin or something else Austin, or Rajab Austin, I don't know, something Austin in Texas, is sort of that whole idea that he's Gordon Gekko he's a symbol of all other preachers. It's not just him. Joel Osteen. It's just not him. He's a representative of all these mega churches that so many people also attend online and believe. These are all, they're actually saying that, you shouldn't have compassion for the less wealthy, because, if God wanted them to have wealth, they would have given them, the proper aptitude and the proper way to make a living from their aptitude. God would have given them that aptitude to them. Since God has not given the right aptitude to some people, it's because they weren't meant to be wealthy and be happy and be satisfied in life. But you, my followers, the upper middle class of Texas, the upper middle class of whoever listens to Joel Osteen, you upper middle class, you should be, you should not show compassion. You shouldn't give a fuck about other people, because God chose you to have wealth. Just like God chose me as Joel Osteen to have so much wealth. God chose me. And I don't need to have any compassion. This is what I'm saying. Again, compassion is taught. You guys are born with very little pre-programming. Unlike other animals, a lot of other animals on the earth, and the simpler the animal, the more is pre-programmed. We know bees are pre-programmed to do certain function and be a honeybee, be a bee. It's pre-programmed, and who knows how much they learn during their short life cycle of, I guess it's 2 weeks. Bees live for 2 weeks or 2 months, something like that. Each honeybee. So in their short life, who knows how much they learn. So most of what they do is pre-programmed in their small brain. I kind of think there is almost zero pre-programming in the human brain. Almost zero. I don't think there is any programming going on before birth. There is no programming. It's fresh, it comes out, and if you don't feed it and clean it, it will die. That would say that you're coming out with zero pre-programming. You don't know to do. Infants cannot do absolutely anything for themselves. So that shows it's zero pre-programming. That means almost everything they are learned. It's learned. Everything. Walking has to be learned by human babies. Compassion has to be taught to human babies. If you don't teach compassion, it's not going to show up later on in life. And there goes, let's send them to Panama, maybe Costa Rica. Why don't we just send them in the middle of the ocean? They have broken the law. Their punishment, just put them on the ship of fools and send them in the middle of the ocean. Wherever they land, they land. It's not our problem. This is the British way. This is the no compassion way. This is the keep the stiff upper lip and throw them in the sea. Salute. This is the throw him in the ocean and keep a stiff upper lip because you are more special than the one you just threw in the ocean. You know, a bunch of Homo sapien Neanderthal mix or Homo sapien, all more or less, you know, throw each other's in the ocean, you know, because I'm more special than you. You know, I mean, come on, the whole business with Israel is that, you know, God has chosen me. A bunch of Homo sapien Neanderthal mix have decided that I'm more special than you because, as you can see, God is providing me with all these weapons. And you want to explain to these white ladies in the Middle East, you know, these Ashkenazi folks in the Middle East, that no, God is not providing you those weapons. Uncle Sam's managers are providing you with those weapons. That's not God. God doesn't want you to succeed as Europeans in Asia. God probably wants you to succeed as Europeans in Europe. But, you know, you have chosen to, as Europeans, to move to Asia and claim some land because claiming to be special. Again, this racism, the chosen people, that comes from racism. Racism comes from the fact that you weren't taught to be compassionate and you weren't taught to not be racist. Because by nature, we are violent animals. We have no compassion. A baby has zero compassion. If you imagine this, if you raise a baby and kill a cow in front of the baby every day, imagine there is an environment in which every day the baby has to sit and watch. You raise a baby in a slaughterhouse. Let's say you're doing a child abuse thing. You're raising a baby in a slaughterhouse, and the baby is watching cow's throat being cut every day, all day, and the smell and the taste and everything that's in the air, this environment, the violent environment. Do you think this child is going to have any issues in the future when it comes down to killing cows? It's sort of like killing cows to this, let's say this thing has happened till age 10. Killing cows for this baby who has been customized, acclimated to, you know, cow's throat being cut 1,000 a day, 100 a day, 500 a day. It just becomes part of its nature. Not only is that going to that baby, that grown teenager or grown up adult, not only is going to not have any problem with cutting throats of cows, but probably is okay with cutting throat of basically anything. Because, you know, you cut it, some liquid comes out, and the fucking thing doesn't move anymore. Okay, next. This is what I'm saying. You're good people if you actually try to teach good things to your people. And one of those good things to teach is compassion. Mr. Elon Musk, if you were 6 years old, I would have said you should have a black nanny or at least to have black nannies, I think should be at a very, very well paid position. Should be actually encouraged for white families to have black nannies. Encouraged. I think you, Mr. Elon Musk, is for you. At this point, it's very difficult to go back to age 5 and try to learn some compassion. That's why I said, as you have made it into a joke, that's why I've said you should, have a black or brown girlfriend to have the compassion present in the room, because you have very little. Yes, I know you can jump up and down and you can show emotion and you can pretend compassion. Yes, but it doesn't. Let's put it this way, sir. I'm not going to argue with you. Compassion doesn't come naturally to you. It's not one of those natural things that you have to really work at having compassion, because you weren't shown any compassion. I have a feeling, because I'm in the same boat. Very little compassion was very little compassion was shown towards me when I was growing up. It is what it is. I guess when black kids in Africa, I guess maybe they show a little more compassion. Their parents show a little more compassion towards them. But we know a lot of other brown and black people. We know a lot of them somewhere do show more compassion. They're more emotional, more, they want, if they hate you, they really hate you, and if they like you, they really like you. It is what it is. This is the Arab culture, for example, brown people, or the black culture. There are some tribes in Africa, I was reading the other day, that, the men in their tribe offer their wife to you for the night if you visit their tribe. If you're from outside tribe, you go into a tribe, they offer you their wife for to sleep with one of their wives as a thank you for visiting us, kind of a thing. So and very few that's why we know African tribes why they were overrun by Europeans, because they opened the door. They didn't start killing Europeans as soon as they landed. They just opened the door and say, yeah, come on in. Why don't you fuck my wife? That kind of a culture, compassionate culture, feed you and clothe you and, hey, why don't you even sleep with my wife? That kind of a compassionate, caring culture is a culture that is in trouble when a culture, the British people of British Island come in, who pride themselves in having a stiff upper lip. That's when you have, slaughter of 10 million black people in Africa at the hands of the British. 10, 20, 30, 100 million. Of the whole Africa, I think the British have killed at least 100 million in Africa, 100 million in Asia, and 100 million in America. Just the British. This is, I could be wrong, but not by much. I'm sure if South Pole had any people living there, British people would have killed 100 million people there as well. This is the thing. And, unfortunately, Uncle Sam's managers are following the British example of, nope, greed is good, no compassion, fuck you. Go get it for yourself. That's why half of Los Angeles are now living outside their homes. Half of Los Angeles is living outside their homes, and those people coming asking for asylum at the rich country, because the rich country has made their country poor. Here's the thing. Again, Mr. Musk. The rich country is making some other countries poor. This is not a equal trade. You don't, the rich country, there is so much wealth to go around, so much productivity to go around. When just like when there are rich people, there necessarily has to be poor people, because there has to be an unequal division of productivity to make some people very rich and some people very poor. It's normal. So your lack of compassion that you don't teach yourself, you don't teach your children, you don't teach your people, has resulted into half of Los Angeles is now living outside their home. Hey, this was my home, I couldn't pay rent, now I'm pitching a tent in front of it. If somebody comes from, imagine a cocksucker from another planet lands on this planet and sees that in some of your large cities, people have been forced to pitch a tent made out of fabrics in front of a house that they used to live until yesterday because they couldn't come up with some kind of a currency that is their share of the added productivity of the society, of the tribe. They couldn't come up with that, so they were told they have to now live in a tent in front of the perfectly good house that is sitting there empty. You're not teaching compassion and you're not learning compassion. So, and what do you mean by good people? Are we good people? I don't know. Do you teach compassion? You tell me, how much compassion are you teaching? Or is it sort of like, oh, that's their problem, they have to sleep on the street, they're not working hard enough? I'm sorry, you have to have 3 jobs when the value of work has dropped so low right now in the world, because there are so many people and so very few jobs, because first the mechanical jobs were taken away, physically demanding jobs were taken away, and more cognitively demanding jobs are taken away. So there are so many few that's why minimum wage hasn't changed. There hasn't been much demand to change until recently, because there are so many people who want to fill those jobs that you keep hiring them and you keep firing them and you keep hiring them and you keep firing them, because when they have a job they can barely make ends meet and they have no time, and when they don't have a job they have some time to do some things for themselves, but they have no means to support themselves. So that's why the turnover is so high in many of these jobs. When you have a job, you don't have no time, because all of it is spent behind the grill. And at one point you burn out, and now you have some time for yourself, but you don't have a job. You see what I'm saying? And that would be your vacation is basically the time that takes you from moving from one job to another job. That would be your vacation. That is today's reality in North America. If you're a fast food worker, your only me time is going to be the time that you have with yourself between jobs, because when you do have a job, you're working all your energy in the job. This is a no compassion society. All the productivity is in Jeff Bezos' account. All the added productivity that the society has been able to put together is in Bill Gates' account, and the people their only vacation comes when they change jobs, the period in between jobs. This added productivity doesn't reach many people, so they have to leave a perfectly livable house. They have to leave that and pitch a tent in front of their house. Imagine how strange it is for an alien to see. Alien comes from outer space and watches your cities and your countries and sees that there are perfectly good houses sitting there, but then they force some of their people who are living there out of those homes, to the point that so many of them have to live in tents in front of the empty home. Are you keeping those homes empty for aliens? Salute. No, I'm sorry. You're as good as you have been brought up. You're as good as you have been brought up. You are as compassionate as you have been taught or treated. You become as compassionate as you have been treated. If you have been treated in a very compassionate manner, you become a compassionate person because you believe that is the normal thing to do. Be compassionate. Maybe try to, avert your eyes when somebody tries to slice an octopus in front of you to 1,000 pieces. Maybe divert your eyes, but some culture says no. Don't worry about it. Lack of compassion is just fine. And the culture of North America has been affected very much by the British culture, which is teaches lack of compassion as a selling point. Stiff upper lip, yes, that's a selling point. That's the same selling point that you go to Africa and kill 100 million people over 200 years. You go to Asia and kill 200 million over 200 years. That's the stiff upper lip business. Teaching that, valuing, being proud of not having emotions, not having compassion, being proud of that. Let's go kick some ass. We ask questions later. Yeah, so no, under current format, I don't think you're teaching enough compassion to your kids. I think, yes, Mr. Elon Musk, you should have a black assistant that follows you everywhere, and you would be happy to accept her input into things that she overhears because she's always with you and hears everything you hear. That would be, instead of carrying around your baby, I think it would be great if you have a black assistant, somebody who everybody knows as a compassionate person. There are some black people who, are willing to get paid and show a stiff upper lip as well. There are some, black people who work in Fox News. They're obviously, they're trying to impress somebody by showing a stiff upper lip and show lack of compassion. I mean, because this whole business of capitalism only really works if there is, zero compassion. When you start teaching compassion, then somehow capitalism really starts misfunctioning. And if being wealthy is not as valued as much, then capitalism stops working properly. If being wealthy is shunned upon, I don't know if that's the correct word, but if that happens, then capitalism will stop misfunctioning, because you're no longer selling wealth as a value, as a good value. And again, Mr. Joel Osteen is there to make sure that never happens, that wealth is sold as a good value, and wealthier people are better people, and wealthier people are the chosen people, and a whole bunch of chosen people are right now in Israel, just killed 100,000 people because compassion was not taught to them. Jewish people, I'm sorry to say this, but you see few Jewish people with compassion, very few, and there are many Jewish voices that have no compassion whatsoever. They come in and say, bomb the motherfucker. All the people in Israel, whether they're Jewish or Zionism, is basically going into the system and saying, I have zero fucks for you to give. I have zero fucks to give for you. I want you off this land. That's Zionism. Because it's my land, because I'm special. That's the height of racism. That when I hear Charlie Kirk speaking, I hear a guy who's, basically going and saying, hey, we white people are at the top of the food chain, and if you have any problem with that, go fuck yourself. We are cognitively are more apt, and you just have to accept that we are going to be on top. Again, that doesn't fix the problem, Mr. Charlie Kirk, Mr. Elon Musk. That doesn't fix the problem. The problem is only going to be fixed if you learn compassion. Instead of carrying your children around, maybe have a black assistant, a well-known, compassionate black assistant around. For example, I would recommend, if I had to, if anybody asked my opinion, I would recommend Tina Turner. Tina Turner seems to me is a black woman who was has grown up in a very affectionate environment. She has a lot of affection for poor people, for people who weren't born with a big brain, or didn't have the kind of aptitudes that your society demands at this point in its timeline. If they weren't born with the aptitudes that you need, I'm sorry, do they have to why are they forced to live a life of poverty? Because they don't have the aptitude that you need, that you want, that you demand at this time. Some time ago, you demanded the physical aptitude. That would be a couple of thousand years ago. Now you demand more cognitive aptitude. What is his fault that if he wasn't born with much? If you teach compassion, if you pick up some compassion by going around with a black girl and having her input in your perspective, maybe there is a better chance this thing would work. This thing that you have undertaken with Mr. Trump. Another perspective, another direction for society and the world. But to do that, to go even-handedly, you need another voice present, and that is the voice of compassion, which, let's be frank, none of you white boys have. You don't have much. When I say the guy with the plantier owner, I read that he's the guy who has provided a lot of the AI for killing the Palestinians. Obviously, he doesn't have much compassion. The Indian guy, I know he doesn't have much compassion. The guy who leads Google for white people, he's a order taker from white people. He's a nobody, Mr. Pachal that runs Google and YouTube. He just takes orders and carries them out. That's what Indians are good at. But the point is this: most Indians, sorry if you're part of the minority, excuse me. But my point is this: between you and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Mr. Fink and Mr. Diamond, Mr. Larry and Mr. Diamond, I don't see much compassion amongst any of you. Your business is not compassion. Your business is numbers and engineering and how to make them numbers work. You gotta have, instead of having your child around, you gotta have a black woman around. Carry a black woman around with you as a voice of compassionate reason. Reasonable compassion. End of story. Now, you don't like AOC, let's go with Tina Turner. You don't like Tina Turner, go with any other black woman who is truly proven to be compassionate, who have been taught compassion. You're not taught compassion. You have people who they treated you with a lot of, let's say, just like me. Not much compassion was allowed you in your growing up process, and that's a bad thing. That leads to brutality, and that leads to all the atrocities that the British carried out in Europe and the Japanese carried out in Asia, and all the atrocities that the British carried out in North America and South America and Africa, and the Japanese carried out in mainland Asia and the island chains of Malaysia and Indonesia. And the British had no restraint in that sense. The Japanese had some kind of restraint. But again, the solution: teach compassion to your children. Start with a black nanny and pay her very well, and to yourself have black assistants, figures who are known to be compassionate, who have been taught compassion in their family, in their culture. Very intelligent. Intelligence is important. Find an intelligent, compassionate person, woman. And I'm not putting anybody down in this regard. I'm not putting you down, or I'm not putting anybody else down. But it's just the way it goes. It's right in front of you. For example, your mother wrote a book by A Woman Makes a Plan. Yes, very good, very inspirational, very, very, very great. But do you see that she on top of her mind is planning? Planning comes from a very deductive, formulated mind, but I doubt comes from a very compassionate mind. She didn't write a book saying let's love each other as human beings. She wrote a book saying a woman makes a plan to make sure things work perfectly as far as she's concerned. Things work good. Not a book says let's love each other. You see what I'm saying? What I'm saying is it's not bad to have a plan and have an engineer's mind and look at numbers. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to do that. But stiff upper lip and not teaching compassion on purpose and not valuing compassion in families, as the Japanese don't, as the British don't, that leads to brutality. And no, it will not stop at the criminal aliens. It will started criminal aliens, then it will go up to aliens, and then maybe those people among us who are really, they are citizens, but they look alien. The brutality just goes up the ladder. Once you start showing lack of compassion, there is always others who have an axe to grind. A guy who will take your place has an axe to grind, maybe with some other group, and some other group, and some other group, and this system starts seeing others and different other groups as a threat, and starts purging them. And before long you will have the purge. The real purge is like, if the mob doesn't like you, you're out. That's why I'm thinking maybe the guys who are ending up in Panama right now are the lucky ones escaping the purge. The real purge.